need to get out of this wind because the wind chill factor is quite high. So I'm going to find a suitable spot and maybe set the tent up and have a look at some compasses I've brought out with me. Oh well, it's started to rain again. Not a lot, and it is scheduled to stop. We'll just get the bro on, get out of it. Now I've got about, get out of it. I've got about 2 litres of water with me, which is not a lot considering in these conditions the dog will probably want to drink quite a bit. Okay then, so what we're actually here today to talk about is my compasses, of which I have 4. And what's prompted this is I made a purchase a few weeks ago actually, but I've not really unboxed it or used it yet, and that's this Lensatic compass. A compass which I have had a lot of experience in the military with, and this is an extremely cheap example of one. So we'll see whether it's actually usable or not. But that's a Lensatic compass for £3.99. My most expensive compass is this, the Sunto MC2 Global, and we'll go into a bit more detail about this in a minute, but this is a mirror compass. I'll cover that in a minute. This is a very cheap basic base plate compass, and you can get one of these for £4 or £5, but it won't be very good. But if you know the limitations and you check it, then it's usable. And lastly, I have this little button compass which also incorporates a whistle and a thermometer, which is now reading somewhere around about 11 degrees, 12 degrees. Oh, excuse me. So I also of course have a sat nav. I have one on my phone, but I have one here. Oh, hang on. We're nearly reaching a boil on the kettle. I'll open it up and show you. So there it is. It's the Garmin Fortrex 301. I've got no batteries in it, but 2 sets of batteries there and silica gel in there. It's in a tin, and usually I tape it round there when I'm not using it. It's usually taped so water can't get in. But we're not here to talk about GPSs. We're here just to talk about compasses, a little bit about the use, but also mainly just the different types. Alright, we'll tidy that up later. Of course, something that needs to go with a compass is a map. And actually I'm just off the area of this map. I'm just off the northern portion of this map. So what I've done for my own personal use is I've printed a map of the portion that's missing. Yeah, we've just got a visitor. Let's have a slight interruption. So these then are my 4 compasses. And before I talk about them in a little bit more detail, let's just think about what a compass is, what it does. It aligns itself with your local magnetic field lines. So it points towards magnetic north and magnetic south. It doesn't point necessarily to true north. There's an error, and that error is called deviation or variation. Sorry, wrong. It's called declination or variation. The word deviation is used to describe an error introduced by local pieces of metal on, say, a ship or a boat, which you then compensate for. So you've got to appreciate that your compass doesn't necessarily point to true north, and so is not always, it's not always possible to read a bearing off a map and then translate that to your compass. You have to make a correction. And that correction, called declination or sometimes variation, we might cover a bit later on, but it is an important thing to know if you're using a compass. And now, when I was in the military, we had a little rhyme for remembering that error, how to apply that error. But I think it was wrong of the military to teach people that rhyme, because that rhyme only worked if your correction was in one direction. You go to another country or some time passes and that correction might be in another direction, but that's another issue. Let's just look at the compasses I've got and just point out some of the good and the bad points. Yes, hang on a minute, I know what you might want. I know you've worked hard this morning, haven't you? You've worked hard and you might be wanting some dividends, and you might actually be wanting a drink of water. Sort you out with this first. You're going to get it covered in sand. Go on, take it away. Go on. Right, so where were we? Corrections. So we're not going to go into corrections because that's quite it's not the topic for doing out in the middle of the sand with my tent blowing about all over the place. I'm just going to go through my compasses. So I carry with me quite often this little button compass, and a button compass is good for giving you an approximate direction, and you're not going to be able to apply any errors to a button compass, not very well anyway, and not directly. It's small, it's robust, you can stick it in your pocket. It's sometimes known as a survival compass. You know, if I know there's a road to my north, then I can get my button compass out and walk north. I might be a few degrees this way or a few degrees that way, but essentially I'll be walking north. So that's why sometimes it's called a survival compass. If you know the direction of a river, a road, pylons, the general direction over the horizon of some big object that you can identify, such as Rosebery Topping, which we were up not so long ago, or the fog might come in and you might know, you know, walk in that general direction and you're going to hit a known landmark. General direction only. Good points are they're very robust and they're small, so you're likely to have them in your pocket, and like this one, it's also got a whistle on it, which is useful. So that's my button compass, which I'll often carry with me. But much more useful than that is a base plate compass, and this is a very cheap example of a base plate compass, but it is useful for navigation. I can use this compass on the map. I can draw a line on the map from point A to point B. I can put my base plate on. I can shift my bezel in the middle to line up with the arrows of the map, and then I can get a true bearing, which I can then convert to a magnetic bearing, and I can so this is much more useful. And you'll pick one of these up for just a few pounds or a few dollars. You could pick one up for $5, but it's going to be limited if that's how much you paid for it. It's going to be seriously limiting. This one has no fluid in it, so the needle just sits on a pivot, and that can cause you problems. The needle may not be free to swing, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail a little bit later on, but holding the compass level is not necessarily level for that needle. So you've got to get the needle balanced, not necessarily get the compass flat. So that's a base plate compass, and it's very good for orienteering, taking bearings from a map and then following a bearing on the ground. In the military we use this compass, and I'm going to unbox it now. I need to cut it open. Where are we? Where's my knife gone? Got a little knife in my pocket. Let's just rip it open. Right, so what have we got? We've got some instructions, operating instructions. Remember, I paid £4 for this, so my expectations are not high. Little case. And there it is. It looks alright, doesn't it? It looks the part. That's bendy down put your thumb through there to use it. Flip the, oh, that's way too floppy, way too floppy. And the same with that, way too floppy. But in there we've got a compass card. So this type of compass is very similar to US military Kamanga type compass, and we had something very similar, but I've got to say the one we had was tremendously heavy, and this is very floppy. But this is a lens, and it's a lens for taking accurate readings off the compass card and to take accurate bearings. And if I set that up like that, I can, you can see what I'm doing, I can look through the lens and I can see the compass card, and I can also see the wire which is in line with the compass card, and I can also see objects in the distance. I'll try and get a photograph of all that, but it's quite ingenious how it works. So I can get a magnified image of the compass card, and I can take a very accurate reading to better than 1 degree, far better than to 1 degree. And obviously in a military situation, if you want some type of artillery bombardment putting down, you need to give accurate bearings and distances and what have you. But you can also use this on the map for measuring. I mean, it's got, I don't know how accurate this is, I'd have to check it before I trusted it. Check your compass before you trust it, but once you've checked it, trust it. It's a pretty basic piece of equipment, and it will do what it says it should do. But when you are using a compass, just bear in mind that error that I was mistaken of, deviation, you could deviate the compass by having a metal object near it. Is this going to do it? I don't know whether you can see that, but this does deviate the compass. So if I'm trying to take a compass bearing and I've got some metal in my hands, or I'm very close to some metal, then that's going to affect it. So just be aware of that, it will affect it. So I've got some testing to do with this one, but it looks usable as long as you use things within the limits. The compass I use if I'm going to do any serious navigation though is this one, and it's a mirrored base plate compass, and this is an expensive compass. This compass cost me about £60, but I think they're about £75 now, and this is the Sunto MC2 Global. And the reason it's global is that I mentioned that the poles are not in line with the true North Pole, the geographical North Pole, and that presents other problems besides just having to correct for that error. It also means your compass needle is not horizontal to the earth. It doesn't want to be horizontal to the earth. Your magnetic field lines are dipped down, so north might be deep down into the earth, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees dip, and that means your compass needle, will you come out the way? That means, alright, you can have the other one. That means you're, go on, take it away. Go on. That means your compass needle wants to drag on whatever it's held in. It wants to dip down. So generally compasses are made for a set region, and the needle will be weighted accordingly so that the compass actually does maintain level in the area it was designed for use. Well, if your compasses are made in China and are sold all over the world, that's not likely. And that's why I say you don't necessarily, there's no more, go on, there's no more. A drink, is that what you're after? Hang on a minute. Here. Right, that'll have to do for now. Go on, that'll do for now. Alright, that'll have to do for now. Right, so I forget where we were, but so that's why this is a global compass. It is very well gimbaled. I don't know whether you can see, but it has extraordinary gimballing in it. So I've used this compass in Australia and I've used it in the UK, and it performs very well, but you pay for it. But then if you're doing a lot of outdoor work where you need to know where you're going, or you get caught out, you run out of water, you could be dead in 3 days. And although I say dead in 3 days, you'd be pretty useless actually after 1 day. So you need reliable equipment, and it's all very well having a GPS, but GPSs rely on electricity and very complicated electronics and other people's satellites, and you might find that when you need it, it's not working. So you should always have basic compass with you and the knowledge of its limitations. So I've waffled on long enough. That's my compasses, which I carry with me. One of those compasses I'll carry depending on what I'm doing. Of course there are other ways of navigating. The sun's just been out, it's gone in again, and I can use the sun and time, or I can put a stick in the sand, and there are various methods of getting north from that. On a dark and clear night we are very lucky to have a star which is almost due north, and you can see that in the northern hemisphere, and it's called Polaris. Now Polaris is not exactly due north, it's actually, I think it can be out by about ½ degree, but in navigation that's not or shouldn't be a big issue. Now let me tell you where most people go wrong with the compass. Most people go wrong because they take a bearing on a specific point. Say it's a building in a wood. Let's just, for example, let's just say it's a building in a wood and it's 3 miles away, and they take a bearing on that building and they walk and they walk and they walk, and they think, well, we should have reached the building by now, because they have some idea on how fast they travel, or they count, do the pace count, so they know how far, roughly how far they've travelled, and they don't find the building. and they don't know whether they've passed it, whether they haven't reached it yet, whether they've missed it to the left or whether they've missed it to the right. If you're navigating with a compass, try and be realistic and don't aim for small targets. Aim for targets which will allow for some error. So for example, I want to go to a certain building, but I know I'm probably not going to be that accurate to walk straight to that building, especially at night. Just take for a night, for example. Try and see if there's something much bigger close by, like some power lines, like a river, like a village. Hit the village or the river and then walk to some point on that river, like where it bends around to the right or the left, or where there's a big pool or what have you, and then you're a lot closer to your target, so your error will be a lot less, and then you can go from there to your target. Don't try and go to your target, which is a long distance away, all in one go, and then wonder where you are when you can't find it. That's my advice. We might do a bit more declination and other stuff later on, but that takes a bit of explaining, and this isn't the place to do it. Right, so I'm going to leave it there then, and I hope this was of some use, especially to those who rely on the sat-nav, your mobile phone. I know you can use your mobile phone outside of tower range for sat-nav, but if it packs in, what situation does that leave you in? Especially if the weather turns and as winter's coming, you might be out a lot in the dark. Right, so that's it then. So I'm hoping from all the bits and pieces of filming I've done here out at the beach with the dog, I can put together a half decent basics of compasses. Right, I'll catch you in the next one, and just remember, life is so exciting, I have a job fitting it all in, so you're not going to get a video every week, although I do aim to bring you a video every week, you know. Come here. Leave that back. Go on.